sex, shame, and self-righteousness. Let's talk about it real quick on my way to church. You know, I was having breakfast with a friend the other day, or yesterday actually, and I realized, like, man, like the way the church, at least the church in my upbringing and a lot of my peers and just over the generations, the way the church has handled this topic of sex, I think has produced two things. And of course it doesn't apply to every single person, but I think you end up having two sides of the fence in people's experiences and navigation of this topic called sex. One, you have those who become very self-righteous. And what I mean is, because sex has been positioned as such this like major sin, and other topics are not really emphasized like sex is, for the person who either is a virgin or who is not having sex, either they're abstaining, they've had it but they're abstaining, or they're, celibate, or whatever the word is you want to choose to identify that. For that person, what has happened is a lot of them have become self-righteous. So it doesn't matter if you are very heavily involved in other sins, let's say pride, gluttony. For me, I was in gluttony for so long, unforgiveness. I mean, unforgiveness is talked about, but nothing is talked about the way sex is. So if you're involved in any of those other sins, it feels like, because I'm not having sex, even if the person is not thinking like this intentionally, this kind of thing is produced in your psyche. Because I'm not having sex, I'm okay, or at least I'm better off. And that produces some level of self-righteousness. Like, holiness is defined as not having sex. That's how it's treated. So you have those on that side of the other camp who are dealing with self-righteousness. So you start to position yourself higher than other people. You start to act like you're better than. You start to handle life like you can kind of judge other people that are having sex, because sex is not the thing you're doing. But the church has positioned sex as being so valued, so important, so high. And I'm not saying sex is not important. I definitely think sex is important. I think sharing your body with another human being, giving them that access, I definitely think it should be valued. I'm just saying I believe the conversation should be handled differently. And because of how the conversation has been handled, a lot of people that are not having sex are operating in some degree of self-righteousness. Once again, not all of them, but a lot of them. Then you have people on the other side who, because of how the conversation is handled, when you are having sex, you are, or when you've had sex, you are living in a level of shame and guilt. And you're wearing this weight, on you, because you feel like, even if you're like, I'm gonna do me, because of how the church has handled it, a lot of people are navigating it by themselves, and they are living in shame, and they're feeling kind of far off from God because of it. Once again, this is not a conversation about my position on sex before marriage or me de-emphasizing the value of it, because I'm not doing that. However, I am saying, because the church, in my opinion, has mishandled the conversation, a lot of people are out there either self-righteous or shamed. And I don't think either one of those are a kingdom position, even myself included. Like I said, I'm on the other side of obesity. Pre-obese, when I was living life obese, I think I was, there were seasons in my life where I was feeling like I am, a little holier than other people, even if I did not intentionally think that way. And I think the church had positioned me to believe that I'm good with God if I'm not having sex. And I'm holy. Forget my pride, forget my gluttony, forget my issues of forgiveness. Not that those are not important, but none of them top sex. And then on the other side, now that I am, not obese anymore, and I'm a lot more in tune with my body as a sexual being, and I am having all kinds of hormonal drives, and I'm having all kinds of desires that I never, ever, ever visited or entertained, because I wasn't comfortable with my body. I had not explored my body. I was not allowing other people to touch my body. I was not charged the same way. Well, that's not where I am right now. And so I think being where I am right now, as a Christian, as a pastor, and as a woman, who is a sexual being, I'm really now challenging when I feel ashamed of the emotions that I have, when I feel ashamed of the desires that I have, versus empowered on how to navigate it. So what we often have in the church these days, and not just these days, but period, over the generations, is either self-righteousness or shame. And if you disagree with me, let me know. If you agree with me, or if you're just engaged in the conversation and you want to, delve into it, let's talk about it. I don't necessarily have the answer, but I definitely know what we've been doing isn't working. It's not working. You're having people who are still having sex. They're just, not talking to the church about it. Or they're having babies and you're acting like you're shaming them for having babies. But the reality of it is, babies are just proof that they're having sex. There's people having sex that don't have babies. You know what I'm saying? And the baby in and of itself is not a sin, but somehow we treat people like they're ostracized or they're outcasted when they become unwed parents. But the beauty of life is not the issue, Anyway, that's a different conversation. But somehow, even in that, people that are having sex but are not getting pregnant somehow feel like they're better off, that they're in a better position. If the conversation is about sex before marriage, let's talk about sex before marriage. If the conversation is being ready to have children, well, then that's a different conversation. Because I have people that are married and having children, and they shouldn't have had children because they're not ready to be parents. Having sex and being ready to be a parent are not the same thing. It's a whole nother conversation. But somehow we have made it okay, to categorize and box people, in, and to shame them or to allow them to flourish in this state of self-righteousness, which I think is actually very sinful and very anti-Christ, and is not a kingdom mindset either. But these are just my thoughts on the way to church. I love y'all beautiful people. I'm navigating this other side of obesity, and I'm just trying to figure it out for myself. But I'm also, I've been a youth pastor. I'm a college pastor. I minister to young adults, and I know I don't want to come at this topic with the same old that people have handled it, because it hasn't worked. They create these true love weight programs, which I have an issue with that. I have an issue with this idea that at 11 or 12 years old, you're supposed to vow yourself to God to never have sex. The Bible says, let your yeas be yeas and your noes be noes. Teach the kids how to handle their bodies. Teach them the value of sex. Teach them their value versus getting them to commit to these vows. Every single one of the people that I know that went through true love weights have had sex before marriage, or have also had babies before marriage. Every one of them. So are the true love weights programs working? And if not, what is something that's being done wrong in how we handle the conversation of sex and these restrictions we're putting on people? Not just restrictions. The word's not restriction. The covenants that we're asking kids to make with God. Why are we asking 11 and 12-year-olds to make covenants with God? Why aren't we just teaching them how God sees them, and God sees their bodies and the values of what God gave them, and the importance of sharing it with a person that deserves it and has warranted it, versus putting them into this contract that they feel now I am to not have sex because I made a contract, versus let me not have sex yet because I have learned how valuable and beautiful it is and how it should be handled and treated with a particular person. Anyways, I love y'all.